Let's
Do
go.
it. Okay, hello all. This is me and Matthew, and we are going to discuss some of our experiences dealing with special needs students in the classrooms and the strategies we've used to kind of better their learning experience and bring them into the class. The student I'm going to talk about is a student whose nickname was Chicken. He had some sort of attention deficit issues. Again, there's no official report I got or diagnosis or anything like that. But he had a lot of trouble focusing, couldn't really stay in his seat. He was in a class with 18 other students, and I had 2 teaching assistants, one of whom was solely there just to help Chicken and try to keep him focused, keep him in his seat. But for the most part, Chicken just didn't quite get the attention he should have had. He definitely shouldn't have been in that class. And the strategy really was just to kind of keep him as occupied as possible so that he did not disrupt the rest of the students as much as possible, and to keep him as engaged with the class material as we could get him to be, because there was just no way he was able to keep up with the pace of the class, but he was there nonetheless, and we had to figure something out for him. So that's just kind of an overview of kind of what the issue was with Chicken. The main strategy I used, I guess, would be the TA, who I had to request specially, would sit with him the entire time, would sort of feed him the work as I gave it. I would be teaching the rest of the students on the board or, with the worksheet or with an activity, and she would be working with him individually, sort of mirroring what I was doing on his desk or on a board in front of him, and sort of had a separate class going on the side with him. And she was great. She would have her own activities just for him. And if he would lose focus, which would happen all the time, we had some kind of toys on hand that would just kind of soak up his attention, because he would be darting all over the room basically with his attention. So I had a Rubik's Cube and Silly Putty, and we would give those to him. And if he couldn't stay seated, if he was having trouble just kind of staying focused, I would give him one of those, and he would just sort of zone in on that. That way he wouldn't leap out of his seat and lie on the floor and make noises and stuff that would kind of throw off the rhythm of the class. So yeah, that's my spiel on Chicken. Matt, you want to?
Yeah. So
some questions?
how did the teaching assistant, like having the extra teaching assistant just for Chicken help his performance in your class?
It definitely helped. There were victories with Chicken. He would understand something. He would say the sentence correctly. He would be able to write some words. And his writing actually wasn't too bad. So having that kind of dedicated attention was a good step in the right direction. Without that attention, it would have probably been a nightmare, honestly. So definitely helped his performance. He still wasn't quite able to do as well as the rest of the class, not even close, but it helped for sure.
Was it every class that he had to basically like have a toy? Like I assume he would start off okay and then he'd just lose focus and then he'd need it every class.
It would sort of be degenerative, like throughout like the lesson. He would maybe start off strong, but it's a 2-hour English class, which
okay. Yeah,
is a long time for even a student without any attention deficit issues. So it would kind of get worse as the class went on. Yeah, it was a little tough.
So how did the parents react to your altered expectations for him compared to his classmates?
So yeah, I spoke with the father a number of times, and it's always an interesting conversation because culturally here they just have a very sort of different view of these kind of issues. They're much more kind of coy about discussing them openly, and they almost don't acknowledge them really, but you can tell that the parents are well aware that their child has issues.
Yeah.
So the father would, he knew and was always kind of, you could tell he was very patient with his son, and basically just told me to do my best. I think he knew very well that his son wouldn't be able to perform at the level of the other students. But the thing is they don't have another option. This is what you realize teaching out here. It's not like, I mean, if they're rich, maybe they can get some private teacher or something, but this is kind of the best option for them. And they want their kid doing what the other kids are doing. They feel like that's better than the alternative, which is nothing.
Right.
They want the kid in the classroom with other students trying to learn English. So you do your best. And I think that the parents were happy enough to see that at least.
Sure. Okay, one more question. How did your experiences teaching chicken affect your teaching methods going forwards?
It taught me a lot of things just in terms of my temperament in the classroom. Because it was kind of like I had to be two teachers at once. I had to be a special needs teacher with infinite patience for this kid, and at the same time worry about the other 18 kids who had their own issues. I mean, it's those other kids weren't a picnic either. It's 18 other 7 and 8 year olds. You're trying to get them all to learn grammar points. So taught me a lot of patience, kind of taught me, it really just helped my classroom management, I guess, something that's kind of always improved by these challenging situations. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's it about chicken. Cool.
Okay. All right. Well, then I am going to talk about one of my students called Eddie. Similar to chicken, actually. He is 8 years old. He's a first grader in elementary school, and I'm pretty sure he's got ADHD. It's undiagnosed, at least to my knowledge, because similar to Vietnam and Korea, it's not really discussed with teachers, any sort of learning disabilities that kids may have. It's a bit of a taboo subject, and so there's a bit of stigma surrounding any sort of mental illness, and there's not really any specialized programs for these kids. I teach in a Hagwon, so it's an after-school academy, and I don't know how it is at all public schools, but I know teachers from public schools in Korea who've been told, you don't treat these kids any differently from the other students. You just ignore them if they're acting out. You just get on with it. So Eddie, he would stand up in class, fidgeting all the time. He'd shout things out, swear words that he thought was funny, or he just impulsiveness. And he had a lot of problems focusing on class material. I think part of the issue is that his class was 6 boys, and they were all really good mates. And there's just one other girl, and they had been in kindergarten together the previous year. And once they graduated from kindergarten, they all went to separate elementary schools. So when they came back, it was like a reunion every day. They all went mad for the class, and before class they were running around like a playground. So that definitely would have had an impact on Eddie and amped him up, and they kind of just fed off each other's energy, egging each other on to do sillier and sillier stuff. And he was always the one who did the stupidest things, probably because he just doesn't have the control of the impulsiveness like the other students. So the way I try to deal with Eddie was try to give him lots of positive feedback, because it's definitely going to knock a student's confidence if all he ever hears from the teacher is, don't do that, Eddie, sit down, Eddie, stop, whatever. So really highlighting the good things he did in class. I recommended to the school that he should definitely move classes, because being in that environment was not healthy for him. He was having a great time, but it wasn't good for his learning. If he would be placed in a quieter or calmer classroom, maybe with students he didn't know as well, then he definitely would have had better results. At least I think he would have done. It would have been a better environment for him to learn. Yeah.
So kind of what was the response from your management when you recommended he move? What was their whole kind of view of this situation?
So it was kind of ignored, to be honest, because the parents are the ones who really have the biggest say in these hag ones. So they want to make sure that their students are obviously doing well, but also enjoying themselves. So the teacher or the owner of the hag one would have to put it to the parents, or we want to move your son into a different class. And sometimes some parents were willing to do that, but other times they weren't. And for Eddie's parents, they didn't think that taking him away from his friends would be beneficial. And the stigma around the mental illnesses. I don't know. I wasn't in the meeting, but I assume it wasn't made clear that, oh, he has ADHD and this will help him focus on class.
Interesting. It just kind of relates to my case study. It just seems like the parents want the students, they don't want them in a different room. They don't want them in a special program. They want them with the other kids for social reasons. Yeah. So how did this impact the learning of the other students?
So, I mean, obviously they were all like I said before, going crazy, acting like a playground. And when the teacher comes in, they would settle down, but it would still drip into the lesson. And so if they were running around before class and the teacher didn't come in like 5 minutes before and tell them to settle down, then the first 10, 15 minutes of class would just be the teacher telling them constantly, stop doing that, just settle down. So when he's acting out like that, it definitely disrupts the class, because then the other boys were getting involved. They wanted to do the things that Eddie was doing because they thought it was funny. So that was very disruptive. And the poor girl who was in that class, she was just one girl. She's very quiet, not shy, but she got on with all the boys, but she just got drowned out by Eddie and all the boys just jumping in and being silly.
Gotcha. And so what would be your kind of ideal, plan for this student? If you could change everything you wanted to change and give him what he needed, what would be your approach?
I think that Korea really needs to kind of consider individualized education programs, IEPs. I don't know of any that happen here, but I think it's been proven in the States that it has a very beneficial, it has lots of benefits for the student. And I mean, if Eddie had an IEP, then it could be more a discussion between the teachers and the parents. Like, this is what we want from him just for this month, for example, like have monthly meetings, setting goals for how he's doing. You can just keep track better, and maybe even like you had a teaching assistant, which, who was specifically there to help Chicken, potentially get someone like that could help Eddie in classes too. That would be very beneficial to him, I think. But yeah, just more discussions really between the parents and the teachers about how they can help his learning and like get the best increase in his ability. Yeah.
Gotcha. Cool. Okay. That is it for us sharing. Thanks very much.
Thank you.